Hey, are you hiring? If you answered yes, let XenTegra Staffing help staff your IT people needs. Head over to XenTegra.com/XenTegra Staffing to find out more. XenTegra Staffing, we can staff your IT people needs. Welcome to another edition of the Citrix Session with your hosts, Andy Whiteside and Bill Sutton, your source for all things Citrix.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 35 of the Citrix Session podcast. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Got a little bit of a unique scenario today. We didn't record a podcast this week because I was on vacation on Monday when we normally do this. However, today when we came into the office, we found out that Citrix has reported some vulnerabilities in the Citrix ADC and SD-WAN product set. And so we decided we would jump on and talk over that with a couple of team members on the XenTegra side. So we have sales engineers, Harvey, Greem, and Randy Price, both very senior sales engineers in the Citrix space, as well as other EUC technologies. How's it going, guys?
Doing great.
Doing good.
So as fate would have it, I actually jumped off of that tab. So I'm not exactly sure which Citrix article I'm looking for here. But Citrix has announced, 5 or 6 vulnerabilities in the ADC and SD-WAN space, and we want to jump on and help people become aware of that and how to address it.
Absolutely. So the CTX article is number 276688, and it does address a number of vulnerabilities that are in the code here. It's 11 in total.
So Harvey, I said ADC and SD-WAN. It's ADC, SD-WAN, and Citrix Gateway, not the service, right? So anybody using this in the cloud, assumably, is not in need of patching because Citrix would have already done that for you. That's one of the benefits of having it, as a service.
That's exactly right.
Pointing out, they've announced 11 vulnerabilities in those various products.
Yeah, it's 11 in total. Ranging across, just as you referenced, Citrix ADC, Citrix Gateway, and SD-WAN WANOP. Looks like it is exclusively WANOP for SD-WAN. So
let's call out real quick, right? We got to applaud Citrix for calling these things to our attention. We
Absolutely.
Had about 6 months ago or less, maybe 3 months ago, that went on for a little while. And, even we were a little slow to react to it. And then a lot of people found themselves in need of rebuilding their environments. All companies have these challenges, and it's whether you choose to admit it and choose to address it or not is the question. So, kudos for Citrix for standing up here and letting people know that there are challenges that they have addressed with workarounds, or not workarounds. This is actual firmware fixes, right?
That's correct. So I'm glad you referenced the earlier one that was happening very late last year, very early this year. That this is not that situation. I mean, it is a vulnerability, but it is not that same situation in that it's already, gone out far enough that the exploits are on the internet and things like that. These are fixes that have been put in place to mitigate the issues that they've discovered, since there are more than one. And the firmware to address these has actually already been released. So they just released a bunch of them last night. One of the versions, it was a 12.1 version, actually got released a couple weeks ago, and it does not contain these vulnerabilities. So definitely something that we would recommend you getting in place, or we can definitely help with doing that as well.
So I'm looking at the table here, and it talks about the attacker privileges. It looks like they vary everything from an authenticated VPN, unauthenticated remote user. Are there any of these that are as worrisome as the one from earlier, where basically you just could take over the NetScaler ADC, and have your way with it and build additional services and VIPs into it?
So no, this is not of the same, attack surface of the last one. This is still a set of serious vulnerabilities, but when we kind of raised the flag on the last one and said, this is a 10 out of 10, this is the worst thing we've seen, it continues that one is the worst. This one does not come up to that level, although it is still definitely a serious set of vulnerabilities that need to be taken care of.
Okay. Hey, Randy, we've kind of been talking without you. Any additional thoughts or comments on what's happened?
Well, I was just going to mention, right? So a couple of things. If you've went through from a management interface, a lot of these deal with from a attack or attacking the management interface on your ADCs or Citrix Gateways, right? And if you're following some of Citrix's recommendations specifically around securing that, that really greatly reduces your surface area of attack, right? So it helps to mitigate, doesn't completely mitigate, but does help prevent some of these sort of attacks. Again, applying the updates is still recommended. But, it just kind of goes to show, following Citrix's recommended practices and going along with that, it definitely can help, right? And especially in scenarios such as this from a security standpoint. So,
yeah, and sometimes people kind of skip those things, and in theory, you get away with it sometimes, but eventually, especially in today's internet-facing world, eventually that's going to catch up with you. So it's two-pronged. One, staying on the latest updates, which if we look at the recommendation, this article talks about what people should do. Big part of that's applying the latest fixes, but it also includes following best practice guidelines from Citrix and other consulting vendors like us to try to mitigate even the risk of these things being a problem.
Right. And the other thing to kind of point out too, right, everything it relating in this article is mainly affecting, gateway or authentication virtual servers or the NetScaler IP or management interface. None of this affects any of your load balancing or content switching vServers. So that's another positive, if you will, regarding this one specifically. But again, there's various different vulnerabilities as well as different attack methods or they call them preconditions here, right? That have to be in effect for you to be able to even take advantage of the exploit. And there's no known exploits out in the field, today for any of these. So actually going in and performing the firmware upgrade, actually remediates all of these. So that's a great thing versus the last vulnerability that was discovered.
So Harvey, I guess we're assuming that people should do this in their UAT environments if they have one first, and test the patch to make sure it doesn't cause adverse effects, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have a test environment, which is another one of the things that we recommend, it would make sense to put this in place. Again, as Andy said, run against your UAT environment to make sure that you're not having any issues or any unintended consequences from it. And from there, as long as it clears your standards, then you would move to putting that into production. Again, this is a list of vulnerabilities, so don't necessarily let testing it in UAT take so long that you still run in production without having the fixes out there, because that means your production environment is what will remain vulnerable. But yes, you would definitely want to try to get some testing done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, I think the goal of this podcast was to jump on real quick, get something out there so that people knew this was an issue. They're welcome to reach out to us or Citrix to talk about how to mitigate it and make some recommendations on how to prevent this in the future, as well as to get the patch installed as quickly and safely as possible. Any additional comments before we wrap this one up?
I don't have any. I'm good.
No, I'm good on my side. All
right, guys. Well, thanks for jumping on short notice, and we'll get this put out and let our team circulate it, and also get it out on the internet and let people discover it. And I appreciate you guys doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we jumped back in the podcast real quick. Randy brought up a really good topic, which was we do offer a free Citrix networking assessment that will allow us to come in and review your environment and take a look at some of these things we're talking about here to mitigate the risk. So I wish we'd have brought that up in the original recording, but I did want to throw that in here again at the end. It's free and can't hurt to have someone else take a look to see how your environment's configured. So with that, now we'll wrap it up. All right, thanks.
thank you for listening to the Citrix Session with your hosts, Andy Whiteside and Bill Sutton. A special thanks to our guest for attending today's podcast. Podcast produced by Pete Downing. For any input, or if you'd like to be a part of our podcast, please email us at info@XenTegra.com. Please head over to XenTegra.com/podcast to listen to all podcasts in this series. This podcast is copyrighted by XenTegra LLC.